Have you ever faced a challenge so overwhelming that it felt impossible to win? A problem so big that it stood over you like a giant laughing at your weakness? Imagine the fear, the helplessness, the feeling that no matter how hard you tried, you could never overcome it. Many of us know what that feels like. Moments when fear and doubt whisper that we are too small, too unworthy, too powerless to fight back. But today, I want to take you into one of the most powerful stories in history. It is the story of a young shepherd boy, a boy no one believed in, who had no armor, no sword, and no reputation, only a sling in his hand and an unshakable faith in his heart. And yet, he stood before a giant so terrifying that entire nations trembled at his name. His courage shocked everyone, but even more, it revealed something extraordinary about the power of God and what faith can do when fear tells you to run. And here's the question: what does his courage mean for us today? Because whether you realize it or not, you too face giants in your life. Giants of fear, doubt, and struggle. But what if I told you that the same God who gave David victory can give you the strength to win your battles too? Stay with me until the very end, because this story holds a life-changing lesson. A lesson that could be the key to finally overcoming the giants standing in your way. The valley of Elah was shaking with fear. On one hill stood the mighty Philistines, their armor gleaming under the sun, and on the other stood the Israelites, trembling behind their lines. For 40 long days, morning and evening, a giant named Goliath came forward. He was nearly 10 feet tall, his armor weighed more than most men, and his voice thundered like rolling storms. He mocked the Israelites, cursed their God, and challenged anyone brave enough to fight him. Yet, not a single soldier moved. Fear paralyzed an entire nation, and hope seemed lost. Far from the battlefield, a young shepherd boy named David was watching over his father's sheep. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for war. He was the youngest of his brothers. One day, his father sent him with bread and grain to the battlefield to check on his brothers. David arrived just as Goliath came out with his usual roar of defiance. The soldiers scattered in fear, but David's eyes widened, not with terror, but with burning faith. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? He asked. Word spread quickly, and soon David was brought before King Saul. Saul looked at him in disbelief, his brow furrowed with doubt. "You are only a boy," Saul said, "and he has been a warrior since his youth." But David did not shrink back. With fire in his voice, he told Saul about the times he had fought off lions and bears while protecting his father's sheep. "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from this Philistine." His faith was unshakable, and though Saul still doubted, he allowed David to face the giant. Saul placed his heavy bronze armor on David, strapped a sword to his side, and put a helmet on his head. But David could hardly move. He stumbled and shook his head. "I cannot go in these," he said, smiling. "I am not used to them." Instead, he took them off, picked up his shepherd's staff, and walked to a nearby stream. There he bent down, carefully choosing 5 smooth stones and placing them into his pouch. With his sling in hand and faith in his heart, David stepped forward, ready to meet the giant. As David approached, Goliath sneered and laughed. His massive shadow towered over the boy. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" he roared. His armor-bearer laughed too, as if the battle was already won. But David's eyes did not waver. He lifted his voice and declared, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty."
His words echoed across the valley, silencing the laughter. For the first time, it was not Goliath's voice that shook the battlefield. It was David's faith.
The battlefield grew silent as David walked forward, sling in hand. Each step he took made the soldiers on both sides hold their breath. The Philistines sneered, whispering that the boy was marching to his death. The Israelites stared in disbelief, wondering if this shepherd was truly the answer to their prayers. David's heart beat fast, but not from fear, only from faith. He knew he was not walking alone. Every step carried the presence of the living God. Goliath tightened his grip on his spear, ready to strike. But David did not stop. Instead, he reached into his pouch, pulled out a smooth stone, and placed it in his sling. His eyes locked on the giant, his hand steady, his faith stronger than the roar of the crowd. With a swift motion, the sling began to spin faster and faster, cutting through the air. The sound of slinged whir echoed in the valley as David prepared to release the stone that would decide the battle. Suddenly, David released the stone, and it shot through the air like lightning. The stone struck Goliath right on his forehead, sinking deep. The mighty warrior staggered, his legs trembling under his massive weight. Gasps filled the valley as Goliath swayed for a moment, then collapsed with a thunderous crash that shook the ground. The impossible had just happened. The boy with the sling had brought down the giant that armies feared. David ran forward, standing over the fallen giant. With determination, he picked up Goliath's own massive sword and raised it high. In one swift move, he struck down the enemy once and for all. When the Philistines saw their champion defeated, panic spread like wildfire. They turned and ran in terror, and the Israelites, who once trembled in fear, now surged with courage and chased them away. Joy belonged to God, and David had proven that faith is stronger than fear. David's victory was not just about a boy defeating a giant. It was about faith, courage, and trusting in God when everything seems impossible. The same God who gave strength to David is the God who stands with us in our own battles. Whether your giant is fear, doubt, sickness, or struggle, remember this: no giant is bigger than our God. If a shepherd boy could bring down a warrior with nothing but faith in a sling, then imagine what God can do through you today. The Israelites erupted in celebration as the news spread. Goliath was defeated. The people who once trembled in fear now lifted their voices in praise to God. Mothers wept tears of relief. Fathers shouted with pride, and children cheered, calling David a hero. In that moment, a shepherd boy became the hope of a nation, proving that courage and faith can inspire an entire people. King Saul watched in awe as David stood victorious. He summoned the boy to his tent, unable to believe what he had witnessed. "Who is this young warrior?" Saul asked, though everyone had seen he was just a shepherd. David bowed and said, "I am David, son of Jesse." Saul's eyes softened, for he knew this was no ordinary boy. God's hand was upon him. As David walked through the camp, the soldiers gathered around, cheering and lifting him on their shoulders. Songs were sung of the boy who killed the giant, and his name began to spread far and wide. Yet David's heart remained humble, for he knew it was not his strength, but God's power that had brought the victory. This story is more than a victory on the battlefield. It is a reminder that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust God in the middle of fear. David could have run like everyone else, but he chose to stand firm, not in his own strength, but in the Lord's. That is the kind of courage we are called to have in our lives today. Maybe you are facing giants right now, giants of anxiety, financial struggle, broken relationships, or self-doubt. Remember David's story. Your giant is not too big for God. Just as he gave David the strength to stand when everyone else fell, he can give you the courage to face your own battles. And just like David, you can rise victorious. The story of David and Goliath is not just ancient history, it is God's message of hope for you today. Giants will rise, but so will God's people. Faith will always be greater than fear, and God will always be greater than the battle. So the next time you face a giant, remember David. Stand firm, trust God, and watch Him bring the victory. If this story inspired you, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we share powerful Bible stories every week that can strengthen your faith and encourage your heart. Don't miss the next one. You never know. It might be the exact word you need for the battle you're facing.